Hi, my name's Leena and welcome back to my channel. As some of you might know, I'm currently solo traveling around Europe and it's been almost 2 months to the day that I've been away from my home in Australia, which is why I thought that while I'm in between kind of a more structured video that I have planned, I would sit down and just kind of have a chat and answer some questions in this currently very quiet spot of the hostel that I've been working at for the past few weeks. I also haven't done a Q&A in 2 years, and the last time I did one I looked like this, and I don't know, I just feel like I've kind of grown up a lot since then. Obviously I'm still the same person and kind of still look the same, but I thought it might be fun to film another one, and I originally wasn't going to make this a themed Q&A and we're just going to answer whatever kind of came up, but most of the questions I got from my Instagram poll were travel related, so I've decided to theme this Q&A around travel. And I guess my experiences and story with it so far. Obviously 2 months is kind of a weird time to be gone. It's not very long, but it's also not short. So this is just how my answers are going to unfold in this moment, I guess. I haven't really planned any answers to the questions. I'm really just going to talk to the camera and kind of let whatever comes out come out. For a bit of background context, I'm currently on another gap year from my uni studies. I've done almost 3 years of study, but I was just like, I need to travel before I kind of commit to studying further and give myself a bit more room to breathe about continuing on with, I guess, like honours and masters in psychology, which obviously is a very big program, and I just needed some breathing room to, I guess, travel and just have more time to kind of explore my other interests and see if psychology is actually something that I want to pursue all the way. So I ended up moving from Queensland, where I was studying, back to my home state of South Australia, and I stayed there for about 5 months and just kind of saved as much as I could, which isn't a huge amount, but that is kind of what I have to go off of while I travel. I've been gone since the start of April, and at first I did a few weeks of traveling with my family, and then since then I've been doing a mix of just like solo traveling and workaways, and also a little bit of travel with friends. And currently I'm in Gran Canaria and I am working in a hostel, which is what my next video is going to be about. But yes, that's just kind of like some general background information, which I guess kind of leads into the question that I'm going to start with, and that is, do workaways pay and how much work do the hosts expect you to do? I get asked questions about money and how I afford to travel all the time, especially in person as well, and especially in this hostel where people can kind of see that I'm working and staying here for a bit more of a longer time. Workaways are such a good way to be able to kind of extend your trip and be able to travel longer term, and they really depend from kind of job to job because everyone on there is so different and all the hosts and everything are so different. So you could have a workaway with a family, which is one that I did in Mallorca. You could be working in a hostel, you could be working on a farm, you could be using kind of specialty skills like carpentry, you could be like a yoga or a surf instructor, you can be literally anything. There is probably a workaway for it. And of course, in saying that, the amount of work you'll do with every host is different, and I guess the benefits will be different with every host as well, and many hosts do actually offer paid work. I do not have a working visa here in Europe, so I can't actually do any proper paid work, but I can volunteer my time in exchange for, say, like accommodation or food, which in turn kind of helps me slow my spending and preserve my savings a little bit longer so that I do have more money later on. So yes, I am kind of traveling by running through my savings, but these workaways and kind of volunteer exchanges have been so great, not just in like a monetary sense, but also in the sense that I can experience things that I wouldn't necessarily experience if I was in a place for a shorter amount of time, or, you know, just passing through as a traveler rather than kind of experiencing the place a little bit more locally. Another question about hostels, and that is, what kind of people do you usually meet when staying in hostels? And the answer to that is very hard to say because it really is anyone and everybody. I feel like there's a few different categories, but the two main ones are going to be like young people, probably ages like 18 to maybe 23, who are kind of in and out of studying or taking a gap year, or are just kind of backpacking and doing things really cheaply and are staying in hostels because it's cheap, and they're kind of just traveling like this because that's what young people do. And then there's people who I guess are a bit more mature aged, who, you know, are also staying in hostels because it's cheap, but they travel very differently to how someone who is a lot younger might. Like, they're not necessarily going to be as stingy and like keen and party all the time. Like, they just kind of keep to themselves a little bit more and are friendly and just want to travel on a little bit more of a cheaper budget, I guess. Or maybe they just kind of enjoy the hostel environment rather than just being in a hotel all the time. And there are also a fair few kind of digital nomads or online workers that come through as well, but I think the type of people in a hostel really depend on the type of hostel that you choose, and you can choose hostels that are kind of more party hostels or more chill hostels or more like orientated towards working and that kind of culture. So There is a hostel for everyone, and even at these hostels you'll probably find just such a huge range of different people, which is part of the reason that makes them so fun to kind of stay in. Next question, tell us about your experience learning a new language. So I have been in Spain for like over a month now, and before I got to Europe I knew I was going to be going to Spain, so I did try and teach myself a little bit of Spanish, and oh my gosh, I'm so glad I did. My Spanish is extremely far from fluent. It is very limited, and coming to a Spanish speaking country has made me realize just how little Spanish I can actually speak. But even just being able to kind of get around a little bit and being able to hear the gist of the conversations people are having around you and kind of participate a little bit makes such a big difference to your experience in a country. My vocabulary is still quite small, and I don't want to say that I've learned Spanish because I really have not, but I've definitely picked up a lot more kind of singular words and know the names of a lot more things, which is nice. For example, like places and like kitchen utensils and different parts of your body, because I've been taking a few yoga classes and they speak exclusively Spanish. So it's been really cool kind of seeing the Spanish that I learned in my textbook come to life a little bit more. But at the same time, I am a very visual learner, and to kind of remember things, I need to see them written down and I need to see them, I guess, in front of my face. And I haven't touched my Spanish textbook once since I've been away, so my learning isn't stagnant, but I feel like I definitely could be putting more into it. But just being in a country that speaks the language that you're learning definitely accelerates, I guess, your understanding of it so much, because you're constantly surrounded by it and you're constantly hearing it and having to kind of figure out what people are trying to say to you. But it is really cool, and if you're contemplating learning a language, or if you only know one, I recommend it so much. It's just a really cool thing, kind of seeing your brain think in a different way than what it's used to. What's been the toughest thing to face while solo traveling? Honestly, definitely kind of like the organizational side of it for me has been the toughest. Like, I guess trying to budget without actually knowing what my next steps are, and then planning those next steps and figuring out kind of the specifics and the logistics of everything, and like how much everything is going to cost and how you're going to get places and which places to actually go to, because it's just a lot of decisions to be made and everything is kind of a little bit overwhelming in obviously a very exciting way, but still the decision fatigue is real, and when everywhere is so kind of enticing and you want to see everything, it can be difficult to kind of narrow it down. Obviously a good and a very privileged problem to have, and it definitely does kind of add to the excitement of things when you don't really know what is happening next. But yeah, when you're solo traveling, people aren't planning and making these decisions for you. You have to make all the decisions, you have to figure everything out. And of course, having to kind of predetermine how much money I'm gonna have and how much I can or should be spending is also a little bit stressful. Mostly because I don't actually have an end date to my travels currently, so I'm kind of like considering a future that isn't kind of set in stone or time bound, I guess. Another thing is kind of the harder, more uncomfortable days when you do feel a little bit homesick, and I got a few questions on these. The first one being, do you get homesick very much when traveling? I get it so bad. The first 2 days after I like left my family and was on my own like overseas in a new country were like extremely overwhelming. I don't know what happened, but I kind of talked about this a little bit more in depth in my Mallorca solo travel video, but yeah, it was really intense and that was really hard. But since then I've had like a couple days where I'm feeling homesick, but not in the sense that it's so dreadful and like all consuming. It's kind of just like, oh, I wish I was here for this, or I really miss this person right now and I don't know when I'm going to see them next, or it's I'm feeling displaced and I don't feel comfortable and I just want somewhere that I can relax. But yeah, since those first few days and since I've kind of adjusted a little bit more to this, I guess, like nomadic lifestyle, I haven't really felt homesickness as strongly as I did those first few days when I like genuinely was considering just booking a flight home. So I think if or when that feeling does kind of come again, it might just be a sign for me to actually start to think about heading home. But for now, I'm feeling good and it's feeling okay. On a similar note, what do you miss most about home? And it is definitely the people. I do miss my friends and family so much all the time, and I see little things that remind me of them and I'm like, oh, I wish this person was here with me right now. But of course they can't always be, and this is when calling people is fantastic. It is definitely harder to call people when your time zones are 9 hours apart from each other, but having like a longer decent conversation with someone I'm missing makes me just appreciate them more and resolves that feeling a little bit. I also of course really miss my cats, and I do also really miss having a car and I guess the freedom that comes with having a car and being able to go to the places you want to go to so easily. And I guess also the comfort of just having like a routine or certain third places that you know you like to go to, for example coffee shops and libraries and parks and beaches and all of this. It is so fun to discover new places, of course, and explore new things, but it is just also so nice having somewhere familiar to go to kind of day after day, and this is something that you obviously sacrifice when you move around. And I guess this leads on to the next question, which is, what have you learned about yourself through your travels that you didn't expect to? And this is that I need to have like a little bit of routine or a little bit of structure or like little projects to work on while I travel, so I still kind of have that time where I'm in a flow state and kind of focusing on something, and I guess the feeling of working towards something as well. Basically having like another sense of purpose, so I'm not just like floating around and sightseeing for months at a time. And this is something that I've kind of learned to do as I go. Like since I've been in this one place for a few weeks longer, I found like a local coffee shop that I like to go to if I want to write, or if I want to have a coffee in like a third place. I found kind of quieter beaches that I return to often when I need a place that's a little bit more secluded and I want to kind of be in my own energy, in my own space. I think I also kind of didn't expect to enjoy the slower kind of travel as much as I do, and I really love it. I feel like you get such a good balance of kind of exploring and seeing new things and being stimulated in that way, but also having a sense of, I guess, like routine and a place to come back to. And you don't have to lug around a huge backpack every 3 days, which is my least favorite part about moving around so quickly. But yeah, I guess the point I'm making is there's so many more ways to travel than I initially thought, and meeting all these different types of people who kind of live a bit more nomadically has shown me that, and it's been really cool to see. The next question from one of my hostel friends is navigating me time / self-care while living in a hostel, and this is so important, and even the most extroverted people that I have met do kind of need their own downtime and space for themselves as well. I do consider myself fairly extroverted only because I know I gain so much energy from being around people, but at the same time I really do need to be in my own space sometimes to recharge. And working and staying longer term in hostel, you meet so many people and you're around so many different people all the time. Like you go to eat breakfast, and while you're doing that you say hello to like 5 different people, and like you go to shower and on the way you say hi to someone, and you never really eat like dinner alone, which of course is nice, but when everyone's in like a big crowd there's always just like a lot of different types of energy floating around, which is really fun and exciting. But yeah, it's important to kind of recognize when you need to step away and you need like a morning to yourself or something like this. So I guess what I've been doing when I do feel like I need a bit more space is just kind of going places and not really telling people in advance that I'm going places, because of course it's always fun to go together as well. But yeah, I guess also heading to kind of coffee shops on my own in the morning when I want to just kind of sit in my own thoughts. And another thing I guess is also kind of recognizing the people that you don't really feel drained by and can kind of coexist in like a chill way, like being in the same space and being in company but not necessarily having to exchange that many words or anything like this. For example, I guess reading or doing some activity together where you're still social but you don't feel like you kind of have to bring your energy up or kind of lower it down to accommodate the other person. But yeah, I guess it's also up to each person to set their own boundaries and to kind of feel into what they need in that particular moment. But this question is from my friend and I thought it was really cute, and it is, what makes you smile every day? And it is definitely the people. Of course I'm going to smile when I see a pretty beach or something like this, but genuine connection with another person, whether that be a stranger on the street smiling at you or with people that you've made friends with, is definitely the biggest reason for my smiling every day. And while we're on this topic of people, what's something that you didn't realize you would love so much traveling? I miss you too, but yes, the people. I feel like you're just so much more open to new interactions and conversations that you might be at home, and by doing that you meet people or talk to people that you just wouldn't normally talk to, and you get new perspectives and new stories and new outlooks that you might have missed otherwise. Everyone you meet is so different and unique, and especially when you meet other travelers, I guess hearing their stories on why they travel and where they're traveling and all of this is really cool to hear as well. And amongst all these people that you meet, there are always the people that just really stick with you, not because you necessarily spent a lot of time together or were super close or anything like this, but because the way they show up in the world and just the kind of person that they are is really beautiful, and I guess just reminds you constantly that there are good people in the world. These next 3 questions I'm going to group together because they kind of all belong in the same category, I guess, but to touch on love and relationships and romance while traveling. Have I ever been in love? Yes, I would say that I have been in love, but the way that I would have defined love then and the way that I would define it now and what this love would look like is very different, and that is largely because I feel like I've just come into myself a lot more and I know a lot more what I kind of am looking for and what I'm not looking for. And I think travel kind of helps with this as well, because you kind of see so many different kinds of people, and you know, not necessarily always in a romantic sense, but when it is in a romantic sense, you I guess become more exposed to, and I guess more opened up to, all the different kinds of love that there is in the world and how different people show and express their love. And I guess just witness such a vast combination of different traits in people, and you can start to differentiate someone, whether you like someone and are compatible with someone as a whole, or whether you like certain parts of them, like maybe you're attracted to the way they look, or the way that they do this certain thing, or the way that they speak. Each little bit of attraction you have towards something in someone makes it easier to kind of surround yourself with more people who bring that kind of energy into your life. So yes, that's all I'm going to say for now on this topic. And the last question I'm going to answer, because this video is getting long and I'm getting hungry, is what's a little travel story you tell your future kids? And I have so many random ones, and I think some of them I would have to hold back from telling my kids in case they get ideas and decide to do similar things. Not necessarily in a bad way, but just that I might worry for their safety kind of way. But one of my favorite travel stories, and I've told a few people this, especially the people who are kind of in my life at this point of time, is from my first solo trip to Hawaii. So when I was flying back from this trip, I was extremely broke and I had run through so much money because Hawaii was a lot more expensive than I anticipated it to be, and I obviously did not budget very well since it was my first trip by myself. So I decided that instead of booking accommodation the night before my 7:30 a.m. flight, I would just sleep at the airport. So I went to Waikiki Airport, prepared to sleep, but turns out they had a curfew and shut at midnight. So I ended up making friends with 2 other young travelers, and we ended up all sleeping kind of just outside the airport. A little bit sketchy, not necessarily something I'd recommend to these kids, but it is a story. But I ended up really getting along with one of the girls that I did meet at the airport, and we ended up sitting next to each other on the flight because we were like a few rows apart and we both had a seat. So we had so much time to bond because we barely slept before the flight, and then on the flight we just kind of talked and ate chickpeas together, and it was a good time. And after that, she ended up staying with me and my friends for 3 weeks in Australia. And from her, I met another one of my friends who I actually ended up just recently doing a trip to Tenerife with. So it's just really cool how you can become so close and so connected with people from so far away so quickly when you kind of have those similar mindsets and experiences, and I guess like goals of traveling as well. So that's kind of the part of the story that I would highlight, rather than the fact that we spent the night outside of an airport. Anyway, it's been really nice to kind of sit down and chat without a script or plans or anything, and know that I'm actually kind of filming a specific video rather than just compiling footage. And I hope you kind of enjoyed hearing all these travel related questions and stories and everything. At this point, I don't really know how much longer I'm going to be going for, but I'm still here for the ride, so I guess we'll see where this journey takes us. But expect to see more travel related videos for the foreseeable future, so please like and subscribe and stick around if you want to see that, and check out some of the other videos that I have on my channel page. Thank you, and I hope you have a wonderful day wherever and whoever you are, and I'll see you in another video very soon. Bye.